Hi, Melinda. Hi, Tracy.
Start.
5:59.
What's that?
So 5:59.
Yeah, that's the thing. That was like into. Oh, yeah, I keep looking at that clock. Have to fix that.
All right. Good evening. It is now Tuesday, January 27th at 6 p.m. At this time, I will entertain a motion to come out of recess from our Monday, January 26th at 7 p.m. meeting.
I'll make a motion that we come out of recess from
Second.
January 26th at 7 p.m.
I have a first by Councilor Carpenter. I hear a second by Councilor Provenza. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Welcome again. I hope wherever you're tuning in from, you are warm and safe. At this time, Mr. Daly, do you mind doing roll call?
Sure. Councilman Sperling.
Present.
Councilman Jamelis.
Present.
Councilwoman Carpenter.
Present.
President Redzak.
Present.
Councilman Long.
Present.
Councilwoman Provenza.
Present.
And I know that Mayor Recupero had said he's on his way, and that Councilwoman Rodriguez is under the weather tonight.
Thank you. Which would we like to open up with?
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah, I thought this might be a good opportunity for us to share quickly here before we get started into our presentation, just a little bit of an update. I think there's a lot of folks that have some interest in kind of where we're at right now as far as the winter maintenance goes. I talked with AJ throughout the day today and at the end of the day, and as of today, we are 45% of the way through the borough right now as far as having our streets plowed and having snow hauled away, making room for parking. Just to educate everyone, it's been a while since we've been in a situation like this where we've had this many inches of snow and we've had to deal with managing the parking situation. And so when we have this type of incident, the snow actually needs to be hauled away, not just plowed. It's a lot faster to just plow and push snow than it is to actually have to go in with a bucket and pick it up and load it into a truck and haul it away. So in some instances right now where we have nowhere else to plow the snow to, we have to go in, make large piles, and then haul the snow away. So that's what we're into right now. Fortunately, we've requested everyone to observe our no on-street parking right now for Tuesday and Wednesday. We're going to evaluate at the end of the day tomorrow, what kind of headway the guys make. I have talked to them and they are in agreement that they're willing to work additional overtime this week in order to accommodate and to continue to make room for our on-street parking. So that is going to be something that's been authorized beginning tomorrow, depending on how far along we get. 45% right now isn't bad. We'd like certainly be higher right now, but you figure with yesterday being the post cleanup day, today is really the first day that we are into being able to really get out and clean up the streets, and to haul that snow away. So we're going to reevaluate that tomorrow at the end of the day to see if we need to extend the no parking. And if your road's been cleared, of course you can park, right? So but if there's still work to be done, we would appreciate if you could continue to observe the no parking. Additionally, we are working to suspend ticketing right now while we are performing this operation. We know this is a giant inconvenience for everyone, and we want to make sure that we're doing our best to clear the roads and open up your parking spots. So we also want you to know that it's pretty much where you can park right now is I know a lot of folks are, having problems finding spots to park, but, if you can work with us, we are working to suspend ticketing while we work through this issue. We expect that, once we get ahead of this, we should be in really good shape and everybody can hopefully get back to normal. Because I feel like the next issue we're gonna be dealing with is trash, right, on Friday. That's more likely that is already pushed a day. But the quicker we can clear up, give you your parking spots, give you a spot to put your cans out for Saturday, that's gonna be all the best. The last thing I wanted to touch on was just that the salt supply right now, we are one of those communities that has a very small stockpile. And our salt supply is extremely low. Heading into the last storm, we only had 15 tons. It typically takes us 12 tons to do a complete round of the borough. So you can imagine we were already operating in conservation mode with the crews only spreading salt on the hills, intersections, and where traction was needed. So we still are operating in conservation mode. We're expecting that the barge delivery that arrived this week, some of that salt is going to start making its way to us. We have 6 orders that had been placed from weeks and weeks ago that we've been waiting on, but with the rivers having froze over, throughout the winter season, that, and it comes up from Louisiana, that has impacted our getting deliveries. So as of right now, just to kind of keep everybody in the loop right now, this is where we're at. We'll provide an update at the end of the day tomorrow, just to let everybody know where we're at. So,
just to put a little bit of context in it, the last time we had a storm like this was 16 years ago, and it actually dropped 18 inches of snow on Verona, and it took weeks. Weeks to clear the snow. People were out there. It's an inconvenience to get plowed in. Believe me, I dug out many people, but it's a thing. If we could put a better plan in place for when this happens again, hopefully not for another 16 years.
Cross our fingers on that.
Having people park on one side of the street before the storm even starts, so that we can plow towards the other side of the street. Then we don't plow people's cars in, and we push all the stuff. Yes, it's going to go onto your sidewalk, but at this point, you don't need the sidewalks as much as you just need to walk away to your house, because you walk out into the street. That's where we're at. There's just too much snow to even worry about. Like, hey, the sidewalks got covered with nothing. That's just where I was at. Like I said, DPW did an awesome job. The streets were cleared. They're clearing them up now. I know it's a lot. People were complaining about they didn't get to the street yet today, but it's a lot of streets and they're working a lot of hours. There's 3 of them.
Not to mention, we got dumped on again this afternoon for a little bit. We got probably
a lot of people are saying that we might be getting some lake effect snow come this weekend.
I heard that.
And it could put more snow on the ground. We just gotta be patient. Let the guy, like you said, let the guys do the job. They're gonna clear it out. We're gonna get it moved. Where are we putting it right now?
Right.
Well said, Councilor Long. I also want to mention that it's nice to have you back in person here tonight.
But yeah, it was 6, and like I said, we were out there then digging our cars out, digging other people out. This is what you do as a community. And it was nice to see a lot of people out, shovel people out.
So to add on to what you shared with us, Mr. Daly, I do want to acknowledge, as you did, the hardship and my fellow councilors as well, experienced by our residents, and also the strength of our community coming together, neighbors checking in on one another, sharing resources, bringing food down to our staff who's working overtime, and showing once again what it means to be in a place that truly looks out for each other and makes us proud to be a Veronian. I also want to recognize the efforts of everyone, including everyone on council who went up above and beyond, stepping up in meaningful ways, often behind the scenes, to help our community and support our staff. I know Mr. Long already mentioned helping to shovel neighbors. I know several others of us helped neighbors get shoveled out as well. Others who were unable to do that secured bottled water for the community in the event of prolonged power outages, coordinated or donated additional meals and snacks for our employees working extended hours, including DPW and police, and also helping pets find safety and shelter, and again, checking in on each other. So I want to note that every one of us here, as well as the mayor, also volunteered to work in the staff warming center in the event that became necessary. So I just want to take a moment to express my gratitude to serve alongside such a caring, dedicated group of people who truly embody servant leadership and consistently demonstrates strong civic leadership in action. Last and not least, though, the major praise tonight, I think, goes to our dedicated staff, most notably DPW, along with the police, fire, and EMS teams, who work tirelessly through cold conditions to keep all of us safe in our community, from clearing the roads and responding to emergencies. Each one of them did whatever was needed, and our community owes them a tremendous amount of thanks. Can we give them a round of applause? With this storm emergency now behind us, as Councilor Long also alluded to, we do remain open to strengthening our response efforts. We welcome constructive feedback during public comment later this evening. We'll be reviewing all the input that we received for discussion at an upcoming super committee workshop meeting. But in this case, as Councilor Gamella said, I believe that everyone truly did their best with the knowledge and information that we had at hand, and our team all worked incredibly hard. And so tonight I want to focus on the many positives that emerged through this challenging weekend. So thank you. Without further ado, we'll move on to our guest speaker for tonight. I believe that is Melinda on Zoom. We're so glad you could join us tonight.
Yeah, miracle.
Hello, everyone.
So Melinda is the Dormont Borough Assistant Manager, and she is going to be sharing with us Dormont's super committee structure, how it's worked since its implementation, and whatever else she is kind enough to share with us tonight as we roll out this new structure. So thank you again, Melinda.
Yes, thank y'all for the opportunity to be able to speak and just kind of share our process. I have been the assistant manager since March of 2024, and then part-time and then full-time was in May of 2024. So almost 2 years, very exciting. And this super committee structure was actually something that I inherited from the previous assistant manager. And what this is it's trying to really focus committees, focus on different projects. So like many communities, we had multiple nights of committees. So we have 6 committees ourselves. We have finance and legal, community affairs and recreation, public safety and code enforcement, property supplies and public works, the sustainability. There's another one, planning, sustainability, and diversity. And then I'm missing one. We do have one more, and then our executive committee. And with the build, it's a business, community, and development. And so each of these committees are headed by a different council member. And so we used to have them all be separate on separate nights throughout the month, since there would be up to 3 different committee members per night. Unfortunately, that does take a lot of time for council as well as staff, for staff to be able to attend, on top of the regular voting meetings, as well as like an agenda meeting. So all in all, there used to be about 8 meetings a month, which if you're also doing commissions and boards, those tend to be a lot of nights for staff as well as council. So at the end of 2023, this was something that came about where the super committee is basically putting all of the committees together on one night. Because one of the things that was noticed whenever they were doing committees was people would meet because they felt there was an expectation to meet, but there wasn't really a need to meet. So sometimes they would be just coming together to talk, but there wasn't really any kind of action or planning that was being done, or it was more of a social time, which is great, but you're also using staff time as well, which could be focused on other ways. So one of the structures that they built to help reduce the amount of time that everyone is together, but be more focused on their time, they came up with this super committee structure. And the way it was set for these last 2 years, we kind of did make some changes along the way. It wasn't anything very structured, in that it wasn't very rigid. So we didn't have to sit for a certain way, just as the main thing for us was that the agendas, very similar to like any kind of workshop or anything, the agendas be posted ahead of time, and that there's still committee chairs and committees that are focused on their different unique areas. So the way it had been set up for the first 2 years, these last couple, because we had just had change in leadership, and so we're being a little more focused, and she's changing up kind of how they're set up. But the way it was the first, so our voting meeting is the first Monday of each month. So the prior 2 Mondays of the previous month, usually the third and fourth, but could be the fourth and fifth, we would have our super committee meetings as well as an agenda meeting attached to the super committee, just to review what had been already discussed to be passed at the next week. And what that is then each of the committees would then bring their discussion topics or motions, ordinances, resolutions, proclamations, whatever kind of discussion pieces to the whole committee. And this also gave a chance for all of council to kind of discuss and be part of the conversation. So because of that, it allowed them to not have to be repeating themselves every time, or if there's discussion, then the discussion doesn't come back to the same point just because someone else who hadn't heard it the first time, or it really reduced a lot of staff time, and it made it a lot more focused for this discussion. So this allowed us to do a lot of work in the last few years. We were able to, our comprehensive plan was already part of this, but we were able to pass that. And you probably heard that we had to shut down our playgrounds, but then we were able to quickly build another playground within a few months. We've passed some ordinances and resolutions as many other communities, but definitely we've done a lot of work in this short amount of time. I think it has helped with being more focused about letting staff and council know and the community know that like there are specific times that we're going to discuss these issues. So that's kind of how it was in the first couple of years. Now this year it's been a little bit even more focused. One of the challenges that we had was because we divided it by 3 and 3 each night, the second week committees felt that they weren't getting as much time sometimes because the first week those 3 committees could bleed over if they had longer discussions that they felt they wanted another week to be able to discuss. So we're currently trying a new way of doing it where the first super committee meeting of the month is just to go over kind of like an agenda review, but it's just any kind of motions or anything that is ready to go on the agenda that may have already been previously discussed in prior times, or if there's like contracts or work authorizations or anything that's already set. So for example, we have like a contract for a timing company for our Dormont Dash, our race in September. We had a lot of work authorizations from Gateway engineers, our engineers just wanting to work on the different pieces. We have the borough manager in my contract. So some of these things had already been previously discussed or decided. And so in the first meeting, it went very quickly, which was nice. We were able to kind of just like go through what each of the motions were, and if there was any discussion needed on those specifically. Then this last one that we just had yesterday, which was a super committee and agenda review. This one had more like presentations, discussions, kind of more of that workshop time to be able to discuss things, as well as reviewing the agenda to make sure that everything's on there that needs to be. It was long, but it wasn't actually that much longer than it had been previously. So it's about a 2-hour meeting is what it would become. But I think because it was definitely very much focused, we were able to cut down a lot of the extra discussions. And a lot of it does come from the council president who's guiding this conversation. And so they're the ones who have to really watch the clock and make sure that we're moving things along so that way then we're not holding up, or if there might be some times where we have to like wait till another week, or if we need to get more information. So I think it's been a really helpful way of presenting information and providing opportunity for people to speak while also making it very focused. As someone who came into it, it's been nice that I don't have to work late 8 times a week or 8 times a month. And it's more reduced down to those 3 main nights plus boards and commissions. But if you guys have any questions at all, I am also happy to share kind of our agendas and how we set them up and what how they're structured and everything. And also if anyone has any questions on the structure itself.
Thank you, Melinda. It sounds like it's been overall pretty positive in Dormont. I guess one technical question, forgive me if I asked you this previously, but I was curious how often you allow your committees to evolve with the changing needs of your community. Like how often do you update the titles or maybe add one or remove one entirely?
That's a great question. We have not had to make changes, I think, recently in the last couple of years, but that doesn't mean that they won't make changes if needed. I think one of the things that's been a little hard, or at least some conversation, is where do some things like which projects align with which committees. So like finance and legal has been our quote unquote dumping ground sometimes because it's like our contracts and our HR and our personnel and any financial things. When some of those contracts might be, like I mentioned, the DoorDash or the Dormont Dash um, running contract. That's more of like a recreational contract. It doesn't have to be under finance and legal. So I think maybe not so much the topics of the committees themselves, but more so just what does each of the committees focus on, or what are their goals? And then when you're looking at different items or motions or different things, which committee would this be best fit? Or maybe it might be that you might have to put it with another committee because this other one is so focused on like a larger project. For example, we have a recreation plan that we need to do this year. We were able to get a grant a few years ago, and we finished our comprehensive plan. We've had a parks plan. We've had a lot of plans. So we are that instead of being under like our planning committee, we've put it under more of our recreation committee since it's more focused on rec. But I think a lot of it's just a decision that council president or other council members can make.
Thank you. That's really interesting because it does get very tricky sometimes because there can be so much overlap between the committees. So who truly owns one item over another? I think that will be an interesting challenge to work through. Other questions or comments? Linda from council?
Yeah, I have one. I may have also asked this before, Melinda.
Fine.
But I just was curious, when you first started, like your very first beginnings of this, did you always have it split in two, or did you start it with just one meeting and then found out you needed to actually have two?
So that was one of the things that they talked about was having it all on one meeting, and then the second would just be that agenda review. But I think they found that having 6 committees at one night seemed just like a lot. And so that's when they split it to the 3 and 3 on each night with an agenda review at the end. And that was one of the things that I had to restructure late 24, early 25 was the way that I would just put the motions at the bottom of the super committee agenda itself instead of like a voting meeting agenda attachment. And so because I restructured it to be rather than like us go by line for each of the motions into one agenda, it seemed like we didn't have to like discuss every single item again. Rather just look at the agenda itself and be like, okay, is there anything on there that's missing or something that needs to be added? For that. And it's usually more the action items. The consent agenda part may have some items already added onto it, but sometimes those get added on the week before.
How long did it take till you had to have 2 super committees instead of just one?
I think it took like about a couple months. I think it depended also on how much work council wanted to do. So our council is very excited about a lot of different projects and loves to work on things to make it better for the community. And found that like whenever we were doing a lot of these projects, it just became a longer and longer nights. And a lot of all of our council actually are working professionals. About I would say almost more than half have like young children under the like in elementary school still. So they're working professionals. They have families and they have other lives outside of this. So they really wanted to focus their discussions when they were coming together to just make sure that they, because they're giving up time with their own families or their own personal lives, they want to make sure that they are providing the best value for the community.
Okay, thank you. That was my question.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Well, Melinda, we just want to thank you again for your time. I'm sending an email to council now, CCing you so everyone has your contact information. I should just say when things and questions come up. I also included a link to the Dormont Borough's website that lists all the different committees that Melinda touched on, if you care to peruse them and their descriptions for future discussion.
Do you guys have your recorded meetings online for people to look at from the past?
We do, yes. So you are welcome to come and see all of them online. I need to go and check to make sure the most recent ones have been updated since it's still me that's doing them. So I will go look on those. But yes, if you were to go to our government page, and then there's like meetings and agenda items, you can go down and there is a separate section that says super committee if you want that specific one. And then borough council is our voting committees. Voting items.
Typically, how long would you say your average super committee meeting would be? On
So
average?
in last year, it had been about, I would say, 2-ish hours each night, just because there was a lot of discussion. This month, because it was a little bit more focused, the first one that was just that kind of agenda review of already motions that were done, that was about 20 minutes. And then yesterday's meeting, which had a lot more discussion, was just about 2.5 hours, maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes. So we actually reduced it down by focusing it, which has been really helpful, especially because sometimes when we had it split between the two, some of the things that were being brought up were just those, hey, we have work authorizations, or there's this contract we've already talked about, we're buying a vehicle and this is the purchase for the vehicle. So it's not really a full discussion item, but still something for council to be aware of. So I think this new setup is going to be a little bit even more focused and definitely provide more of an opportunity of really diving deep into specific things, but not having to like go over every single item multiple times.
Very,
Mhm.
very efficient.
Yes, more efficient. Exactly.
So if we combined the two meetings, though, approximately 2 hours each, that'd be a 4-hour meeting.
Right. I think part of it too can be if it's a little bit more focused. I think it just depends on how you structure it for some of that stuff. So if you already have motions that are like set to go and ready, that are just like I had mentioned, like if you're purchasing a vehicle, or if y'all have an executive session, have already discussed through contracts, and so this is the motion for that contract. Then that could be something where you review those pieces, and then if you have more of a discussion or presentations, those can be given a little more time.
Great.
Fantastic. Let's thank Melinda again. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you. All right.
You're welcome to stay on, but we won't be offended if you hop off. I know you have
Actually,
many-
I just got a call from our public works director, so I got to call him back about the snow too.
Take care, Melinda. Thank you again.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye.
Thanks for
Thank
your
you.
patience too.
No problem. Thank you.
Without further ado, we will transition to our HR consultant, Tracy Holst. For those of you who were with us when we first began this meeting on January 20th, 2026 at 6 p.m., you will remember that Tracy guided us through a series of exercises. The one was a code of conduct drafting exercise, and the second was a vision and goal setting exercise on council. So Tracy, I'll let you take it away from here. I know you have a time constraint.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Trish. I mean, Jason, am I sharing? Because I did get the most updated versions of the code of conduct / expectations, and I also got the most updated version of the priorities. So I didn't know if you wanted me to share it or you wanted to share it. It's entirely up to you.
Sure, I'll bring it up and you just tell me when to advance the slides here.
Okay, well, I would say share the code of conduct expectations Word document first, if that's okay. I mean, I have it up. If you want me to share it, it's fine.
Yeah, you could. That'd be great.
Yeah, no worries. Just give me a minute. I'm like dying because my husband is actually sick. He's actually like had ended up going to the hospital and they admitted him for the flu, even though he had a flu shot. And I feel like I'm getting sick too. So this is actually better for me not to be there. So I'm just
Oh, I'm
like,
so sorry to hear that.
No, it's crazy. Everybody, and then I reached out to people that I have like plans with this weekend, and everyone's like, we have so much going on. Like everyone's sick. So I hope you guys are like, I see Kelly's sick, so I hope you guys just, stay healthy, eat your vitamin C, that type of thing. So can you see my document?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Perfect. So first of all, I want to thank Trish, the rest of council, everyone, and I know Jason, you got delayed when you were traveling, for allowing me to work with you on this exercise. I thought it was so much fun. And I thought we really, really did something very different. We got some comments from the public that they were very happy with what they did. They've never seen anything like it. And it was just a good exercise overall. So I want to thank you for allowing me to be part of it because I think it's something that probably every new council should be doing. And I know, Jason, it was your idea initially with the code of conduct as well as the strategic planning session. So I think we accomplished a lot. I don't know how everyone else feels, but I think we did. So, but this is what we came up with the expectations of council. So we really came up with like what we had is at council, talked about in different groups, what they wanted, what they expected from each other, what they expected from public. And then we did add a couple of different things to it in regards to the, interactions in public spaces, as well as virtual attendance, that type of thing. Because we think that, again, as council members, it's very important for them to obviously be present, be there with the public, be respectful, that type of thing. So I don't know, Trish, if you want me to go over this document in detail or if it's something that, you want to finalize with council. I'm not sure how. You tell me what your vision is.
Yes, would you go through it quickly for us? And then I don't know if we want to share now or wait until Mr. Daly does a second case study. Probably wait till we hear the second one before we discuss.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the expectations of council. So these were things, again, these were prompted questions. So I left the comments in here with the prompted questions and everything like that. But these were things that came up and they decided to do. So listen and do not interrupt, be on time and prepared, regularly attend meetings in person via Zoom in extenuating circumstances, be professional, respectful, do not use profanity or swear. Do not personally attack another council member, and if needed, take a recess or break. So again, if things get heated, just be like, break. And we really talked about, it's okay to disagree, but to do so respectfully and politely, because nobody is going to agree on everything. And that is the biggest thing. Like, again, that's because everybody is passionate about your community. Everybody wants to do what, the best thing for their community. And there's different views to that, and that's fine. And then for the interactions with the public, because obviously we wanted to make sure that they were, kind, sensitive, and caring. We wanted to also make sure that people dressed appropriately for the meetings and business casual attire. Pay attention, make eye contact, act with integrity and transparency. Do not make faces, roll eyes, sigh, or dismiss comments. I mean, I know some of this is elementary, but again, it is something that is just an expectation of council. Remain neutral, ensure that there's follow-up by management, attend public events for visibility in the community. And if council member or the mayor has a meeting with a resident, please share the contacts and information with others as necessary. And John, I mean, you were very vulnerable in our session, so I'm going to call you out, but I appreciated your vulnerability and sharing the fact that you realized, when you were on council last year that you did meet with a resident and you didn't share it with the rest of council and it actually bothered some people. So I think that was a really, really good call out and context for everyone to understand in that regard. And then criticism should be directed as council as a whole, not individual members, and should include 1 to 2 constructive suggestions. So instead of like saying, criticizing somebody, being like, okay, well, could we do this or should we do this, or something that's more positive in nature and more helpful rather than critical, if that makes sense. And then interactions in public spaces, including social media. So, I mean, I've seen the Verona social media pages. I've seen a lot of different things. I did see recently. So, Jason, I appreciated your insight on the public works and everything that's going on, because every community is really having a hard time. I just found out, I was texting and I mean, there's so many communities that are running out of salt, or they have run out, especially like Arnold, New Kensington, over that way. So, maintaining a positive professional tone in public communications is critical, not publicly disparaging the borough staff or fellow council members. Avoid posting personal opinions that could be interpreted as an official borough position. Use social media to inform, uplift, and support, not to debate and criticize. Direct concerns or issues through appropriate internal channels rather than public platforms. And remember that council members represent the borough at all times in public forums. And this is, I think, critical because again, you know me, I have a history of being on council, but I always very much like knew that people were watching me no matter where I went. And that's not a bad thing. It actually helps because you're held to a higher standard because you are a public official. And then the virtual attendance, we talked a lot about this at the meeting. Just if people did not watch the last meeting or they weren't able to make it. But we talked a lot about, really trying to be present, and it's going to be the exception, not the norm. When used, council members should definitely appear on clear video, use headphones to ensure audio quality. And if the standards cannot be met, virtual attendance should not be used. So those were the things that we came up with as far as expectations. Jason, council, Trish, council, I will defer to you if you want to say anything else about this document.
I think not at this time. To conserve your time, Tracy, would you walk us through the goals and visions exercise summary?
I absolutely will. So give me one more second.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I will pull it up.
And it's helpful to have your insight, like Mr. Daly's as well, just from working in different places and similar challenges that are experienced.
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, I think that this was an amazing exercise that council did. I think that it was really, and again, I've been on council, we've talked about council, we've talked in the HR meetings and stuff like that. Everybody does have competing priorities. So everybody really wants to do so much for their community. But the problem is when you have, and the borough manager knows this, Jason knows this, and the new borough manager will know this, but the problem is when you have too many competing priorities, everything gets lost in the shuffle and you don't focus on certain things. So this exercise I thought was amazing from that perspective because we actually really focused in on different things. So tell me, I'm trying to think what screen you're seeing. Bear with me. Are you seeing the one that is, which one? I'm sorry. Are you seeing the one that's like actually like the PowerPoint itself, or are you seeing the one that's still in the version?
Yeah, the edit mode.
All right, let me just share. I'm going to share another screen, so bear with me.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we're going to go through priorities.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. So we talked about the short. So what we did in the exercise, just to give everybody context, is we did considered like short term, which was 3 to 6 months, long term, which was 6 to 12 months, and then or I'm sorry, midterm, which was 6 to 12 months, and then long term, which was 12 to 18 months. So these were the short term goals that the council came up with. And if you notice, I did put some highlights in here because there was a lot of things that were kind of reoccurring. Like it could be a short-term goal, it could be a midterm goal, it could be a long-term goal. It's almost like a continuous goal. But these were some of the things. So the police grant application, the Citizens Advisory Board, hire the borough manager, initiate talks with Oakmont, and to give, John, I know you're the one who initially brought that up. There were a lot of people actually voted on that because it was like, it is a borough that's right next to you. Like you should be doing things and sharing different things and working together. So address blight in the community and implement the super committee structure. So those were the priority ones. And then these were the supplemental ones. So I'm not going to read all of these off in detail, but there was a lot of things that came up as far as like supplemental people really wanted to do. We haven't put them on, I called it a parking lot. So we haven't put it on a parking lot yet because I figure council still needs to digest this. They still need to review it. They still need to kind of, if they wanted to tweak it. I didn't want to be like, okay, you know, again, and I know Trish, you didn't want to be, we're going to do this. Like you really wanted to give people the opportunity to kind of finally review this and continue the discussions on it. So, but again, I highlighted cameras because cameras came up in so many different things. And, you know, increase the parking, provide council updates in a community newsletter, those type of things. And then the midterm. So here we go again, the cameras, the blight. They came up as priorities in the midterm. So we could clearly see a pattern here. You know, address unnecessary spending, update codification in Ecode 360. I was laughing because I was like, did I get that right, Trish? Because I wasn't sure what all we were talking about. So
You did.
yeah, swings in the park. This was actually Curtis's idea, which I absolutely loved. But he talked about like, you know, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Curtis, but like he talked about the autistic children and, you know, and even like the potentially disabled children and really having the equipment for them to be able to use in the parks and fixing the sidewalks, continued development, analysis of long-term financial goals, and training of staff. So, I'm sorry. I know I'm going fast, so I apologize. I'll pause right there. Does anybody want to add anything or say anything about what I've covered thus far?
I'll just say that I think I'm the one who put the cameras on two different places. And the reason I did that is because I know we will have some money sooner to do some cameras and then we'll have to wait for other money to do other cameras. So I didn't get specific in what cameras, I don't really know, but I just know that it's gonna be an ongoing thing, but hopefully a year from now, we'll have all the cameras that we're looking to get.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. And then these were the supplemental ones. So obviously the capital plan is definitely something that's going to be worked on, though the grants, you know, and the grants came up a lot. So I think it's very important that, you know, grants be reviewed and everything like that. Because I think that there's a lot of grants out there, according to conversations I've had with our state rep, things like that. So I definitely think that these are supplemental. And again, Trish, I think for you and the council, like for your discussions, like, is there one you might want to swap out? Is there one you just don't want to think that you can accomplish for midterm, but you want to swap out, like, all the applications for grants? And the applications for grants, quite honestly, is an ongoing, another one that's ongoing that you're going to be continuously working on. And then the long term, these were the priority ones that you came up with again. And this is where, just to give again people the idea, like we had them vote. So the ones that I put as the priority ones, the ones that I put as the most important were the ones that had more votes from all of council because everybody had an opportunity to say what they wanted to accomplish. So this was like the multi-year capital funding framework, the riverfront development, start a paving plan, comprehensive plan, apply Main Street matter funding, and then a social worker for the police. And then these were some of the supplemental ones. Obviously the HR management system for compliance, Twin Boroughs Forum, partnering with a school district for safe routes to school programs, evaluating police pension fund, moving the salt pal, and then implementing fees for LLCs that buy properties in the borough. So any comments from council? Anyone want to elaborate on any of those between the priority ones or the other ones?
I just think it's a great summary. It's really helpful how you put it together so that it made some sense of a bunch of colored post-its now and something we can print out on a printer.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No, it was fun. It was fun. So I did create this slide with recurring themes because I do think that that's very important, especially for all of you as council members. This is all what your priorities are. This is all what you want to focus on. So I think that it was clear, it came through clear in all the exercise that we did. So I just put that slide together for you. And then I put this slide as a placeholder because I do think as you continue discussions as council members, you might want to be like, hey, let's add this to supplemental priorities to be reviewed in the future. Let's look at, this in the future or something like that. So even though you can't accomplish it in the next 18 months, you will have a placeholder for it and you'll be able to do so. And you'll be able to be like, okay, wait, we talked about this. This is going to be on our goals for 2 years, or this is going to be on our capital plan, or this is going to be somewhere. So it really helps you focus on what you're going to accomplish. And then I just put a next steps summary in here. So discuss and review priorities identified, prioritize and move around as needed. Focus on up to 3 categories, at least for the short term, midterm, and long term. And then I think that I'm willing to help with it, and Jason, I'm sure you're willing to help with it, but like really develop some clear timelines for identified priorities with clear deliverable dates. And again, if a date gets moved or it gets missed, but again, I think that's very, very important. And I think it's very important from a borough management perspective to say, and Jason, I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, but to say like, okay, well, these are our priorities for the next 12 months. We can't add this in, or we can't put because we already have these priorities identified and we're going to be delivering on them by, June 1st or something of that nature.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, any questions, other comments, anything like that?
Thank you, Tracy. You hit on some things that I've been wrestling with, which one is that some things in the 12 to 18 months category are clearly multi-year projects, such as a comprehensive plan or riverfront development. Thank you. So that's a challenge, but I think it makes sense to keep it there for now. Perhaps we can break it down into further specific action items that are doable within that time frame. The other is that we have some items in the supplemental categories that are actively happening, such as our multimodal transportation fund grants for improvements, most notably on Arch Street and coming soon Jones Street. So I don't know what to do with that because they're happening, right? So we have to find a way to fit those in somehow. But overall, it's a challenge that I think we're all looking forward to embracing. This is very good, very positive. Thank you so much for your help and insight. I will add, Tracy, I didn't add anything to your next step slide, but I will add it now that we are actually, so insert step, using these priorities to inform our council committees. And we're aiming to share a draft out with everyone at our interpersonal exercise scheduled for Saturday, which is the DISC assessment with Tracy. From that, then we will resume what Tracy has laid out in terms of each committee helping to self-select the priorities, and then we'll revisit as a council. So that's the plan tentative as it stands. Of course, welcome feedback throughout this process since it is new to us. I don't want to talk over anyone. Does anyone else have questions or comments on the priorities and visions exercise?
Just that it really helped, I think, to consolidate. And as we go through the process, it's how we can focus instead of just going all over the place, my opinion, anyway.
Great point. I may or may not have said this publicly, but our ultimate goal is to have a version of this that is posted within this chamber, as well as the code of conduct that we can refer to throughout the year. As new things come up, we'll have to reassess the priorities that we are selecting right now. So,
and put it on the website eventually.
Sure.
I think maybe Sylvia, did you want to say something?
No, I was just listening. I'm listening. I'm here.
Can you mute yourself?
So if there's no other questions or comments from council on the values exercise, Tracy, we will thank you for your time. I know you have another commitment, and we will return our attention to Mr. Daly, who is going to lead us through a case study similar to what Melinda did regarding Dormont structure. He's going to walk us through another community who has developed a code of conduct so that we can kind of compare and contrast notes and see other things that we may want to add or. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Bye-bye.
So, I think, this idea of a code of conduct, I think strikes, some people differently, right? is, do we need rules to operate our meetings? Do we, how we function, how we interact with one another as a council? And, I think this idea, might have been perceived originally as something that was out of left field, and maybe this is, just a Verona thing, and, why are we under the spotlight in needing a code of conduct? And so I thought it was important to emphasize, where did this idea come from, right? Who else is doing this? Why is something like this really even, being brought up? So, there's a community over in Butler County that had developed this code of conduct that really was incorporated into a new member orientation. And that's really where the idea came about was, when new members come on to the board, this is a second-class township where this was from, when a new board member was elected and they came on, there's no one here that knows exactly how to operate, right? How to conduct themselves, how do you act whenever you're sitting up here? Is there a way that you're supposed to act whenever you're not in this chamber, right? Because when you're running for election, you're a private citizen, right? When you get elected, all of a sudden you're on display, right? And now your private life becomes your public life, right? And they intertwine and they cross over, and you don't oftentimes realize, is there even a difference anymore, right? And so what some communities have done is that they've adopted what is this code of conduct that the entire board, the entire council would adopt, that said, that would outline, how are we going to agree to behave whenever we're sitting up here, whenever we're dealing with a resident, whenever we are working to resolve, problems and issues that are brought to us as council, as a board, and how do we act individually? How are we expected to act individually? And I can honestly tell you, these codes of conduct are only as good as council is going to follow it. So
Right.
these have a place. They provide a framework. They provide some guide rails, we'll say, for how we operate. But again, they are only going to be as good as you all want to self-govern yourselves and want to hold each other accountable on this council up here. If you choose to adopt this, how you'll function, right? So, just kind of walking through, the document that you have in front of you is the example, right? This is the case study that, this came from. This one was from Clinton Township in Butler County. Again, that's a 3-member council up there, which you might, or board of supervisors rather. And you might think that that's a very easy way to govern, right? Oh my gosh, if we only had three members, wouldn't it be great? Well, I can tell you that it is equally as challenging, right? Because a majority is only 2 in that instance, right? And it only, there's a lot of different ways to manage a 3-member board than there is managing a 5 or a 7-member board. And so a majority is different in that instance. However, the responsibilities remain the same as a council member as they do with a 3-member, 5-member, however many are on the board. And that is that you all are entrusted with the responsibility to govern. And at that level, that means that you are setting policy, right? You are overseeing this borough, and you are establishing, the different roles and ways that this community is going to advance. One of the ways that, at the next upcoming meeting that you're going to be considering that is going to be by adopting a new fee resolution. That is a policy that you're going to set. You're going to say how much someone's going to pay for a lien letter. That's a policy that you're going to set, right? And then it's going to be up to staff then to carry out your policy decision whenever you put that in place. But you all are entrusted to, to govern in that regard as an elected official at this point. So it's going to be up to staff to provide you with the information that you can make an educated decision with. You should be doing your own research, fact checking, right? I think a lot of us did that during the budget this year, right? I was new to your budget. Tim did a nice job of digging in and really doing a lot of questioning, right? Yes, thank you staff for bringing me this, but I have some questions about this, right? And that is exactly how you all should function, right? At that level. Trust and verify, of course. There's going to be things that you may request of staff, as individuals, but also as a board, as council. And in order to help make those decisions and how to conduct yourself. In order to conduct business, right, council, has agreed that you're all going to set meeting dates and meeting schedules, and we're working through right now what is going to be conducted at those meetings. How you're going to conduct those meetings, when you're in person and when you're remote. The code of conduct starts to dig into a little bit more details on that, right? There are communities out there that say that when you're on Zoom, you have to, your microphone has to be on, you have to be visible, you have to have headphones on, especially if it's an executive session. They go into that level of detail to determine if that is an acceptable way that you're going to agree to conduct yourselves. Now, every one of you has the opportunity to be on Zoom at one time or another, right? To attend a meeting that way because of life gets in the way, right? And you're not going to be able to attend every single meeting. So, when you think about how you're going to, agree to attend meetings and what you're going to agree to do, what's going to be an acceptable way to attend, you all should be thinking about, okay, if I have to be in that situation, all of those rules, can I meet all of those rules? Right? Can I do that? And if not, either your expectation is going to be that you don't attend that way, or that you're not permitted to be in the room. And all of council would need to agree to that code of conduct that would say, if we don't all agree to this and we don't all follow the rule, then this is how we're going to handle ourselves. So those are that's why I say, this is only as effective as you all are going to enforce it upon yourselves. Because it can't be up to the manager, it can't be up to the mayor or the solicitor to say that you're not following this, right? It's got to be up to you all in order to do that. As far as the information that you get for the meetings, and this comes up pretty frequently here, and I've seen it, and maybe part of this is, my newness in my part-time aspect is the interim here, but the way that things get on the agenda sometimes come up last minute, and they sometimes get rushed. And sometimes board members, council members feel like I didn't have enough time to look at something, right? Because it came on too quick or it got added last minute. And as Craig indicated, there was a recent rule change that said that we can change the agenda now right ahead of the meeting. So that could further make things a little more last minute, right? But if we agree through this code of conduct that we say, agenda items have to be at a certain day, there has to be a cutoff. We don't agree that, ahead of a meeting, unless it's an extenuating circumstance that meets a certain set of criteria, that we're going to put something on the agenda. That could be something that you all want to consider, because I know that, again, on occasion, just from my experience, that has been something that has come up here that has caused some concern. So in order for these meetings, though, to be effective, and we've talked about having a business meeting and having a meeting where committee type work is going to be done. It is so important that everybody come prepared in reviewing the packet and coming ahead of time for the meeting. If you're showing up to the meeting and that's the first time you're looking at that packet, you're not going to be an effective contributor to the meeting at that point. There should be questions that are thrown at the manager that say, hey, I was looking at the packet, what is this? Right? What does this motion mean? What does this, what does this document mean? Can I also need something else? And that came up, as an example, that also came up for us during some of the hirings recently. right? There were some members that said, I'd like to have seen, their resumes ahead of time because I don't know who I'm voting for. I don't know who these people are, right? So that was a good comment, right? I'd like to have more information. Those are some good comments that do come up, but coming ahead of time by reviewing things at the meetings will not only make the meetings go quicker, but you'll be a more contributor, a better contributor to the meeting itself.
Sure.
So as far as, guidelines during the meeting, Tracy kind of highlighted this in her session there about being respectful, about having civil discussion, and that the meeting should follow an orderly process. Look, that a list of items that you guys just went over about your priorities for the short term, midterm, and long term, that's a lot of work. You guys have a lot of really good things to focus on as you start looking forward, right? I know that, and I've seen it, that at times, discussions can get heated. They can, elevate to feel personal because you guys are so passionate about the things that you're talking about and the things that you're doing. But it's really important that you check that type of attitude and, and to check yourself before each meeting. So whenever you come into this chamber, you're operating as a full board and as a full council, making sure that you're going to work towards having those respectful conversations, those, quality conversations with each other, so that, again, you're not here to attack each other. You're not. You're here to get the work of council done and to move forward. Like I said, that list it's aggressive. Those are quality items that you have on there. These aren't just pie in the sky things. These are very real things that you can get done. By the time you end your term on council, you're going to be able to look back on your time here to say, I did something, right? I accomplished it. We set up goals. I was able to accomplish these things. And, you're fortunate this early in your terms and this early after an election that you've already gone through that exercise, because a lot of councils will, they'll wait a year to do that, to let people get settled in and to let people, start coming up with items. But because of the fact you guys had a majority of the council returning, you were able to do that and be able to really put together a really good list. Again, the meetings have, they're structured. I think that, we were starting to work on really enforcing the time limits for public comment. We were really working on, trying to be respectful and, keep to those time limits, which is good. Again, I think that helps the effectiveness of the meetings in general. And that's one of the items that the Clinton Township had called out as well was, look, we want to let public comment out there, but we also have to make sure that our business gets conducted and that we're able to keep, moving. As far as executive sessions go, your executive sessions are a privilege. And that's kind of, and when it's considered a privilege, that means just like with anything, I'm sure your parents might have said this was they can take it away, right? Or you can lose that privilege, right? That's the exact same thing that can happen to council. Is that if the rules that govern executive sessions, meaning that if things are talked about that are in closed session behind closed doors, personnel, property acquisition, legal matters, if they find their ways outside of council chambers in any way, if you're texting somebody, if you're recording it when you're on Zoom, on the side, if you're talking about what was talked about in executive session and it leaks out, of this chamber right here, you can lose the trust and the privilege that you're given as a council to be able to discuss those matters behind closed doors. And that was one of the items that was called out in this case study, was how important it is to maintain confidentiality and trust in the executive sessions. Now, I can tell you that from my experience in working with this council, you guys have done that. You guys have maintained your accountability up until this point, right? You all have maintained that, and you have made sure that you do not talk about those things outside. So I think that it's an important thing that if you do adopt a code of conduct, that be a very important piece that's in there still, because it is so important for council to conduct business. So you all are governed by the borough code, the Pennsylvania Borough Code, by your adopted code of ordinances. And, even though your comprehensive plan is outdated, your comprehensive plan, outlines your development and how you will progress with your activities. I know we're going to be working on an updated comprehensive plan, in the near future, but the legal framework that you have is something that we should always kind of keep at the forefront of. Okay, is it legal for us to do? Should we be consulting with our solicitor? Do our documents align with how we are conducting ourselves in this chamber? Just as, we talked, when Tracy was outlining her items, we talked about, putting those front and center in front of council members. It's as equally as important that you all understand that you are bound by law, right? To, what you can do, how you can conduct activity, and the things that you can actually execute. There should and will be times whenever the solicitor, the borough manager, the borough engineer will just say, no, you cannot do that. By code, you cannot do that, right? And we have to be willing to accept that and move on from that, and just accept that there are some things that we are just not going to be able to do, and recognize that is the law that we're going to be governed by. I think that the last item here, and sorry that I have the word township on there, is that the council is governed collectively, and this is probably not the last, this is not the last slide. Council is governed, collectively by the majority in here, right? And so not an individual member can, direct an action to be taken, or direct one particular program to be implemented outside of the full council's, well, not full council, but the majority of council approving that action. And sometimes that can be, I know that we come in with a lot of ideas and a lot of desire to have something done, but your role as a council person is to gain consensus by the majority. So it's making friends on council and being able to have the majority then adopt that policy or adopt that program to have it done. Once that is done, then it becomes policy that the manager and staff are supposed to carry out. So and again, this would all be outlined in the code of conduct, that not individual board council members carry out individual policy, right? Policy gets adopted. Once it's adopted, it's the manager's responsibility then to carry that out and to provide updates and check-ins on things that are taking place. So that kind of leads us to the chain of command. That in the borough, the police department reports directly to the mayor. So that would be the police chief, and all of the officers are under the mayor's direct supervision, and everything else falls under the borough manager. So that if there's activity of public works, if there's code work, zoning work, anything else that would be taking place out there, activities that are in the parks, any of that stuff, all of that should then run through the borough manager's office, and they should be entrusted to either direct staff directly, or to consult with contractors or consultants to carry that work out. And so the reason that I bring this up, and it is important, is that occasionally you can have council members that feel a need to dip down, and while they maybe just be feeling like they're checking in, sometimes that can add some interference to the work that's being done. I know that you are all very involved and very active in the activity of the borough. And so it is important that there be one chain of information, so that information runs through the manager's office, and you should entrust that they are going to carry that out. So as far as ethical guidelines go, there's I think that we all have, want to be giving the perception that we all are operating, to the highest ethical standard that we can, that we avoid conflict of interest, that, we submit our financial disclosure statements that show that we do not have a vested interest in decisions that we're voting on, that we avoid harassment or hostile conduct between one another and the public. These lines start getting very blurred whenever we start introducing social media, right? And how things get interpreted. Before they used to get very, blurred whenever we were just texting each other, because we would try to infer tone or extrapolate meaning out of a text message that we're not talking to someone. That becomes even more so with social media now, where, the platform is wide open. And it's great that it encourages open dialogue, but it's also a challenge, I think, for you as council members to choose how you engage with that, both professionally as a public official, but then also personally. Where is that line, right? Where is that line that we talked about early on about your personal life and your public life, right? And sometimes that can become a very real challenge, and I know that we all suffer it, right? And especially now, whenever things are getting heated right now, and things are, and folks might have a lot of concerns about how we're conducting business. Our street didn't get cleaned quick enough. I just plowed out my parking spot. You plowed me back in. And folks are starting to really let us know how we are doing right now, right? And so that is something that we can address in this code of conduct as to how you are expected to behave, both on social media, in text messaging to each other, text messaging to the public. If you get text messages, just how you handle those issues. You all can lay out a plan or a policy here in your code of conduct if you choose to do so. So this can probably be one of the harder areas for council members, for elected officials to deal with. We see this at every level of government, right? This isn't just a Verona issue, right? This goes out to our federal government, our state government, right? We always see, challenges with this, and how people, perceive, how they should be, conducting themselves. Lastly, I think is, as far as citizen concerns go and how you interact, again, in this example that, the Clinton Township had provided, they really emphasize running everything through the manager's office. You all are out there to set policy. You're hearing about what's going on. You're coming up with ideas on how to solve problems, but the initial problem should always be directed to the manager's office to resolve. And you all have done a really good job, I think, since I've been here. You're certainly not shy of sending things to the manager's office. So, which I think is good. I mean, that's how it should be. But I also think sometimes there's an opportunity for you guys to get caught up in it because you're on the front lines too. And you're dealing with it as well. So, so I'll just finish with, in this case study here, this was this township's way to try to keep guardrails up, to try to help themselves, have some rules, and to give them a playbook on how to handle some what are otherwise sticky situations. If you don't know exactly, how to act, if you don't know exactly how to, respond to things, this helps you do that, if you choose to adopt it. And so I'll just leave you all with that right now. Open up for some discussion and some comments as to, what, how you, proceed with what you adopting something like this or dropping something like this. It's out there.
Do me a favor, sorry, can you just check the participant list and mute anybody who's not muted? There's some leading through.
Sure.
2 quick comments that will provide some framework for an effective discussion. 1, we plan to put this up for adoption at our February business meeting, meaning we really need to focus in on what needs revised tonight. 2, Also keep in mind, this is not written in stone. This is a living document that will be revised from time to time. This is a starting framework. Again, it will be posted in this room, but it doesn't have to be perfect at our adoption.
Should the door be open?
Oh, there was a lot of, the police were coming and going, so we just shut it, but of course.
Yeah, maybe there's people waiting on, oh, I don't know.
The main door was locked.
It was locked for me too, yeah.
Oh,
Really?
well, that shouldn't be. Let's open that.
I couldn't open it.
No, I know you couldn't. How'd you,
The police opened the door for me.
they should,
Excellent presentation. Covered a lot of stuff. You know, we were working on a code of conduct policy last year with Tracy in the personnel committee. Started working on a little framework on it last year. The social media thing has been an ongoing issue. We talked about it in local government academy, PSAB. It is kind of a hot topic because tough to avoid it. I mean, it's, you know, we're on our phones. The phone is part of our lives now. Everybody's on their phones. And it's tough to avoid. And, you know, hard to stay away from it. But, you know, the problem is, you know, when you're a public official, you're gonna jump into those rabbit holes, you know, addressing topics where, you know, the entire council should be involved. And, you know, when it's a discussion, you know, you wanna have a town hall, maybe, you do that. But opening up something online, you're also exposing yourself personally. When you're doing that, they can attack you personally. Or you might attack somebody, you might be compelled to attack somebody personally. May not be the greatest thing to do. That's why, I mean, I try to, I'm online too, but I'm just saying what I do. I can't speak for everybody else, but I avoid talking about borough business online. Because it's not good. Want to talk about borough business? We have meetings for it. Come down here, let's talk about it. You know, we're on Zoom, we're here in the meeting.
John, I'm so glad you brought up social. Do you think our drafts currently captures enough about our behavior on social media, or would you suggest any tightening?
I think it's okay. I just think we can just limit it to just not talking about borough business.
Yeah.
I just, you know, especially if it's, you know, related about personnel matters or contracts, you know,
I mean, I don't
a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a, yeah, I bet so. It's, you know, it's yeah, it's a lot of stuff that,
One, please.
Sorry.
yeah, but it, you know, we really don't wanna, we don't wanna disparage other people, other, you know, officials, employees. You know, we don't wanna fall into those rabbit holes. So, you know, the idea is we wanna be a team. You know, no matter if we disagree here, we're always gonna disagree on something. You know, Mayor Koch once said, you know, if you know, sometimes you might agree with me 50% of the time, you might agree with me 78% of the time. If you agree with me 100% of the time, you need to get your head examined. You know, so. Because no one is going to agree on everything 100% of the time.
Right,
It just doesn't happen,
right.
right? So that's why we're a legislative body here. We're going to have disagreements, but we have to be professionals,
Definitely.
you know,
Did you have anything, Lauren?
that's it.
Kurt and Tim, you both started to talk. Did you both have comments and
No,
stuff?
I mean, I just was gonna iterate that. I mean, no, I don't think in my time on council and before my time on council, no one's ever posted anything about personnel or contract negotiations. There are certain things, I mean, I posted something today and I'll admit it, I don't think it was completely negative. but it addressed some concerns that I had that I thought were kind of pushed to the wayside. I sent several emails over the last couple of weeks and I got frustrated, so I posted. But I didn't bash anybody. I was really trying to just put the light out there. It wasn't nothing negative about you guys and the plan. I just thought the plan was a little bit, it was rushed. It was a little last minute. We had multiple weeks advance notice before the event happened. We knew, I knew 2 weeks ago we were going to get hit with a blizzard because the weather said so. And did I trust that we were going to get as much as we did? No, but as we got closer, it looked like.
So,
I mean, but
Tim, for the
pour
purpose of
into-
this discussion, I'm gonna pause that, because I'm sure we'll have comments.
But I'm just saying, we shouldn't be post, and I do apologize about those feelings, but what I said today. At the end of the day, we got there.
I want to
Sylvia.
acknowledge your sharing that and the vulnerability in sharing that, and I think we all make mistakes, and we can certainly strive to forward and all be more positive and professional on social and in general. Kurt.
So it might be something that doesn't have any effect or minimal effect, but like on my Facebook, just because I'm working towards on top of council, I'm working towards a social worker license. So I have on there like a disclaimer, everything, or whatever I post on here, my opinion only, representative, borough organization, like, again, it might not have any effect if, council was like, hey, if you're gonna have a social media, we would maybe appreciate you putting a disclaimer.
That's an interesting thought. Does anyone have comments on that? Is it best to refrain or to add a disclaimer?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all residents as well as council members. So we have the same concerns. And I mean, some of us might have concerns about how the council is governing. And I mean, Facebook is not the place. Facebook is not the place for anything. But listening to the posts, and a lot of things have been, a lot of people have been feeling like they're being silenced on Facebook. And a lot of it is, it might not be the best, but there are a lot of good ideas in there. And the community being allowed to talk about these things, that should be allowed, because we can take feedback on that, and then use that to implement policies in town or help with future disasters. Because not everything was negative on all those posts. There was a lot of good ideas about how we could have did a better job with. I'm just using this recent thing because it is the most recent thing that had happened.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think there's never any value in considering it. But I do prefer, at least among counselors, what John was saying, that a most productive conversation comes from being here in person and having that face to face. Because often I've found it with myself on social, it's very easy just to say something because you're angry or frustrated. But when you think about it, you realize X, Y, and Z, or you have a whole idea that's worth sharing. And it's a much more productive place to move forward from and actually grow versus just venting frustration. So I would lean towards like council having, I think it's written like productive, positive dialogue versus engaging in these things, even with a disclaimer.
But I think that here, when it happens in here, you have the engagement with the residents. You also have the entire body here, so that there is a discussion, and then we can act on it.
Absolutely.
And then if there is a problem that it's done, like, we can move on it.
Right.
If there's some sort of an issue. Or on Facebook, it could get lost in the shuffle in some sort of thread somewhere. Or it gets forgotten about and someone remains angry.
Absolutely.
We're here, things actually can have, well, I'm not saying that they can always get done, but I'm saying they have a higher probability of getting done here.
Right. I want to make sure we allow some time to talk about virtual options. Does anyone else have any other thoughts about social media? Okay, so regarding Zoom, what are our thoughts about when we're on Zoom? Do we want to require camera, headphones, just camera?
We are,
When we as counselors,
just
let's start with council, yes, this code of conduct will focus on us.
whatever was presented a little bit ago,
Yes,
I think I agreed with most of that, especially what concerns me is an exec session where the person is not living alone.
okay,
I live alone, so it's nothing, but you don't know, you invite over some friends or something. I like the idea of using headphones.
for example,
And being on camera so that, see, you've got the little things in your ears or the headphones on or whatever.
just to clarify, you mean specifically for exec or all meetings?
No, for exec.
Okay,
It's a public meeting. I'm, it's a public meeting, so I don't care what happens then.
I mean, most of the public meeting, I mean, you might not be here because you're sick. I mean,
true.
I can understand the executive session gets camera on.
Yeah,
headphones on,
that's.
But in the meeting, if I'm sick and I look like crap, I'm not gonna put my camera on so the whole time and see how bad I look.
Yeah, I agree, because I look bad a lot too, but I think if we're sharing, if we're talking about something, I think our camera should be on. Because, maybe, you've worked all day, you barely made it into the house and you turn on Zoom and, for whatever reason. You're at home with Zoom and you're eating dinner, so mute yourself and keep your camera off, but if you're talking, presenting, I do like the idea of the camera being on.
Well, I think, I may, Vincent brought that up, that if, you're gonna speak on Zoom, we should see who's, speaking.
Even for public or just council?
For public also.
We're just talking,
Oh, you're on, I'm sorry, you're on,
just us. How
Well-
we should be, unless you.
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah.
We can also include that, I was just clarifying.
Yeah, I jumped ahead, I apologize.
Well, do you agree with the public as well, or?
For myself personally, I look out in the audience, let's say that's not Sherry, let's say that's some person I've never seen. So I do see their face. But say I don't know their name. So we have something going on here tonight. That's very creative. There's Mr. Jackson, concerned citizen, I don't know who those people are, but if they were sitting here in the audience and I didn't know them, I wouldn't know who they were here. But I can see the person's face. So I don't know, I'm not sure that, I don't know. It's hard because I'm a non-video person personally. I don't like how I look. And I may forget and do something inappropriate on the video, just, I don't know.
Real quickly, let me ask Jason, what do other communities do if they're, somebody on Zoom wants to, speak?
Most of the ones that I have seen, they are on video. So whenever they want to speak, they turn their camera on, to address, but if they're just listening, they'll oftentimes mute and put a picture on, as a member of the public. For executive sessions, I have seen all video, headphones, as kind of like a safeguard for council to assure that that stuff is taking place behind the closed door essentially.
Is there any requirement for their names? To be on their display names?
So, the technology oftentimes will dictate that, and there is ways to manage that, and we do have the ability to manage that here at the borough now with the updated platform that we have. So, that is an issue. I think that, some members of the public will put funny things or,
Right.
not funny things, right? On their, for their nickname, or put a graphic up that's inappropriate, or meeting bomb, right, like the thing, so.
Yeah.
We do have the ability now to manage that, in effective the next meeting, we will have more control over that with the new platform we'll be using.
Which is,
Which is the webinar platform, not the meeting platform for Zoom.
great suggestion.
Yeah.
And do we have to issue any type of disclaimer prior to the meeting whenever we do put it on Zoom and say that any inappropriate, display names or material, should, or, we reserve the right to.
I think
Turn it
Jason's
off,
saying with
or-
webinar version that we'll try.
Or do we just,
You don't see them, there's no names.
Yeah, you won't see all these for the next meeting. We won't see all those people that are on there, even a gallery form or anything like that. It'll just be, if you've ever attended a webinar before, it'll be,
right, that's, okay, I gotcha.
yeah, it'll be just like that where there's like a panel or there's
Gotcha.
attendee list.
Yes, okay,
But it's not like
Right.
this.
okay, yeah.
So this is great. It does sound like we have some consensus on an expectation for the camera to be on when a counselor or the public is speaking, making a presentation, etc. But the requirement of it being on all the time is not needed for public meetings. However, for executive session, we would ask that it be turned on with headphones. Is that?
That sounds like a good summary, yeah.
Okay, very good. Then I guess the last subject related to this is just anything that we missed. I have two items in mind that came out when Jason was presenting, and Jason, I want to invite you to give us your top one or two things that we don't currently have. The first is the requirement for submitting agenda items ahead of time. Once upon a time, no fault on anyone, but we used to have our packets on Fridays, so you have the whole weekend to review the material, which I think enabled council to be set up for better success. So I think that would be a great goal to move towards. And the second item, because having a borough manager is still very new for all of us, I think saying something about the chain of command that no one of us is supposed to direct staff and those kinds of things, as you said, should all go through the borough manager, wouldn't be a bad thing to clearly reiterate. Am I missing other things? What are your thoughts about things we should add?
No, I think those are all really good, priority ones to have on there. So I think, I think these other items that we went over, like you mentioned, by coming prepared and all that, I think all of this is a little bit of a work with, it being a temporary thing right now, including a permanent manager, but I think those are great expectations to lay out for council and for the next manager.
I might ask you to suggest some language for that in our current draft.
Definitely.
Does council have any other questions, comments, thoughts on those items or anything in general related to code of conduct?
Do we have a draft of the actual policy? Or that we're gonna adopt that you're referring to?
Yes, it was emailed today.
There was email today,
Mhm.
oh. Okay,
So again, please review, and when we add the things we just discussed tonight to it, we'll send out the revised version for, again, hopeful adoption the February business meeting.
this is it?
It's a Word document.
Okay. I see. So this is basically an official version of the presentation that Tracy gave?
Yes. It's actually what she shared.
Okay, I didn't realize, I didn't see the email either.
Great. So if there are no other comments or questions from council on this or any of the extra things, please.
Thought of one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, this is always kind of the challenge with anything like this, any policy, any ordinance, or any code of conduct or et cetera. If a person, whether it be on council or in the public, refuses to follow it, then what? I don't know what I'm saying.
I think Melinda touched on this in her prior communications with us, that it is on the president to enforce a certain decorum. Should it get out of hand, Jason, looking to you for comments. I know in other municipalities, if needed, they've asked the police to stay throughout the whole meeting. Hopefully it doesn't ever get that contentious, but That is other means that I know places.
I mean, I think from a board standpoint, you would recess.
Or the recess.
There
Very
would
good.
be people where you would motion to adjourn if it just gets so far off the rails that it can't be brought in.
Sure.
And that's internally or externally.
And that's fine. I guess what I was asking had more to like simpler things like, oh, when you turn your video on and someone says, I refuse to turn my video on, then what?
Well, we don't have to allow comment.
Then you just mute the person out or something like that?
Well, hopefully council wouldn't do that.
Well,
But
I'm just saying, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That if we are asking people to follow certain guidelines, and whoever it is, whichever guideline it is, and they don't, what do we do? And I'm thinking that that should be specifically outlined in the code of conduct so that people know what happens if they refuse to follow the guidelines.
so my first thoughts are one, that you may not be allowed to then make your public comment or any comment. And two is lack of respect and compliance with our decorum would make without being a good meeting, virtually or in person.
So it's just some things to think about. I mean, those are good suggestions, but they're not in the code. Okay. So we may need to think about that and add a couple things.
Right.
It doesn't have to be exhaustive or.
And again, it's, there may be instances that you're not going to be able to address in that manner. That the only alternative is going to be to recess the meeting.
Right.
And to just move, away from the issue. Because that's going to be that is going to be, I would say the nuclear option, right, is to eliminate the platform, right? If you can't get control of it, you've got to eliminate it for a short period of time until you can gain control again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and that recess can be, we're going to take a break. It doesn't have to be an adjournment. It's just a pause, a reset. Let's get our, act together, come up with a game plan on what we're gonna do, and then come back in, right? So, and that's certainly an option.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that up because any kind of guideline, rule, law, is not as good as its enforcement.
Can I ask you to take a stab at language regarding enforcement?
Oh, I shouldn't have said anything.
Thank you, Counselor. Without further ado, we will move on to section 7 of our January 20th agenda, comments from the public. At this time, council will hear comments on public related matters. Please approach the podium or raise your virtual hand, state your name and address, and limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
Yeah, can we make,
Comments should focus on borough business, policies, or actions. Council encourages thoughtful feedback on decisions and performance while maintaining respectful and constructive dialogue.
Trish, may I make a comment before the public starts?
Of course.
I would like to thank, starting with our manager, interim manager. Jason, you did a wonderful presentation. You didn't miss a beat. I thought it was extremely well done. And council, I think your questions and some of your answers have been very, very good. I feel that as a council person, when we sit up there, we not only represent ourselves, we represent an entire town. And I think we all need to be careful what we say. Everybody has feelings, whether you like the person or you don't. We're all human, we all have feelings. I personally don't even bring a phone into the meeting. I feel that that's a time that you shouldn't be on your phone. I have no reason to be on it, telling anybody what's going on at the meeting. I'm kind of private about stuff like that. So I don't bring a phone to the meeting. I'm not against anybody bringing it, but I personally don't. I feel that's a time that's devoted strictly to the meeting and to the public. And I don't do anything on Facebook. I think sometimes that just opens unnecessary cans of worms, but that's me. So I guess we just need to make decisions that are right and good for everybody. And I think that's what we're all about. We're trying to do the best that we know how to do for everyone. And I think we're doing a good job. We're never going to satisfy everybody, but we will do the best that we know how to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Well said. And I didn't mean to exclude Mr. Daly's work in our borough earlier when I was commending the staff. So I don't want to let it go without stating thank you for your expertise and leadership tonight, as well as the planning process.
Oh, no, I didn't mean anything like that, Trish. No. You do an exquisite job. Oh, my goodness. I have
No. I was
no
reiterating.
negative comment. That was just my personal. I thought his presentation was excellent. And I think everything that
the same thing.
and I think all of council, I think everybody presented well, and all the comments were well taken from all. And
Yes,
I thank everybody. And I do apologize. I'm not in the habit of missing a meeting, but I'm having an issue today with my leg, and with ice out there, I was really reluctant to come down. That was the only reason, but I feel very bad that I'm not there. I enjoy the meetings, and I make a point of it to be at every meeting. I don't think I've missed maybe one. I don't know, but I am very sorry. I extend apology.
It's okay, Sylvia.
It's okay, Sylvia. No worries. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to public comment. Leslie, you patiently had your hand up for some time. You have the floor.
Hi, thanks. Let me bring on the video.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you. It's a little soft, so just yell at us.
I'll lean way in. Okay. So I was sort of nominally talking about the snowstorm, but it actually fits in really nicely with the code of conduct because really it's much more about communication, at least from my angle. I don't think anybody is mad at it snowing. That would be kind of silly. And DPW, of course, no shade. They are probably the hardest working people in Verona right now. They're doing phenomenal work. For me, the challenge with the storm was really much more about communication. And I think it dovetails really nicely into the things that you guys are talking about. So I first, and this is just sort of my experience, but just kind of as an example of what happened from kind of one resident's perspective. Kind of watching the news as the storm rolled in, and we hadn't heard anything yet. I hadn't heard anything yet. No kind of blast, like no text blast, no information. I asked around on Facebook. Somebody pointed me to a text relayed message from the police's Facebook that Obie and Jeff had shared out. So that was kind of the first message. And then there was a message from Verona, like from the official text source, that spoke to some of the same issues as in the police one, but different answers. And then, of course, there's all the Facebook pages that all have other kinds of different answers. And so for me, part of the issue there is just what is the official channel? And this isn't a question that I'm asking you to tell me, but like as you sort of figure this out, trying to identify what is the official channel and who is it, like who speaks, basically who speaks for the borough in terms of getting people the information. Because if you get, the police say something and it's the same, it's points on the same topics that are then differently answered from the borough and differently, so just how do we figure out who we're supposed to listen to? I guess is the short version. And then some of it is also timeliness. So today I actually blocked out time in my work schedule to be sure to have time to potentially reshovel and move the car, because that was the messaging, was that we will get fined if we don't, and we need to move it. So I blocked out time to be prepared to do that. The time window for my street would have ended at 2:30. And 2:30 comes and goes, 3:30 comes and goes, 4-ish comes. And, again, no shade on DPW. I can't imagine how they could have done it any faster. But at that time, probably somebody in that room knew that it wasn't going to happen. And so a message that let us know that we could go about our day, put away the car keys, go back to work, would have been appreciated. That would have been respectful to know it's not going to happen. Again, not saying it should have happened faster. That's not the issue. The issue is the communication. It kind of,
Leslie.
yeah,
Thank
it
you.
kind of felt like we were told what to do, but not given the same respect.
Yeah.
So as you sort of do work through the issues of how you figure out communication, how you figure out how you
You are out of time, so I'm going to pause you, but I'm highlighting communication as a big growth opportunity as well as the timeliness issue. Is that correct?
Yes, that works. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Are there other public comments? Seeing no other public comments, at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel issues, specifically to review feedback from our staff panel on our leading borough manager candidate. Do I have a motion for executive session?
Make a motion to go into executive session. We do not have to return.
Thank you
I'll
for the
second.
clarification.
Second.
Board, I have a first by Counselor Carpenter, a second by Counselor Sterling, noting that we do not have to return back. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, members of the public, for joining us tonight. We'll see you next month.
Don't stop it, Jason. Please. So what I'd like us to do, Sylvia, stay on, okay?
I am. Thank you.
And then we can lock the waiting room, so no one can come in, and then she doesn't speak for the transition.
Want to let you know,
Turn it off.
good job.
Jason.
And I